parents refused to pay for my studies and kicked me out at 17, while they gave my sister new car for New Year, and she called me loser. Then I shocked everyone saying it, and it was no secret that my parents had a favorite, my older sister, Tracy. Ever since we were kids, she was the one who got the extra attention, the compliments, the gifts, and the unwavering support. Tracy was the golden child. She could do no wrong in their eyes. Meanwhile, I was the boy of the family, the one who was expected to tough it out and figure things out on his own. My parents believed that boys should fend for themselves, while girls needed to be protected and taken care of. At first I didn't question it too much. I mean, it was just little things. At first Tracy got the new clothes while I got hand-me-downs or cheap substitutes. She had her own room with fresh paint and new furniture, while I shared a room with whatever junk my parents couldn't fit elsewhere in the house. They even paid for her dance lessons, gymnastics, and every extracurricular activity under the sun, while I got a basketball my dad said he found on sale. The real sting began as we got older. Tracy wanted to go to a private high school, and my parents moved heaven and earth to make it happen. I once asked if I could get a tutor to help me with math, just a tutor, not even a fancy school, and my mother laughed and said, "You'll be fine. You're a boy, and boys are good at math anyway." Spoiler, I was not good at math. The worst part for me wasn't even the lack of resources. It was the constant comparison. Tracy was always so talented, so smart, so responsible, while I was the lazy one, the one who needed to work harder, the one who would just figure it out eventually. I was constantly reminded, subtly and not so subtly, that I wasn't on their level. When I was 17 and had graduated from high school, I told my parents that I wanted to go to college. I'd researched scholarships and tried to figure out how to do it, but I needed their help for the rest. That's when they sat me down and dropped the bomb. They weren't going to help pay for it. They said it wasn't because they couldn't afford it, they could. It was because you're a boy, and boys are supposed to stand on their own 2 feet. Then my mom added, "Besides, we've decided to focus on helping Tracy. She has such a bright future ahead of her." I couldn't believe it. I asked them how they expected me to stand on my own 2 feet, without even having a chance to start, and they just brushed me off. My dad said something about how he started working full-time when he was 18 and that it built character. My mom chimed in, saying I needed to learn how to be a man, and that college wasn't the only way to succeed. Then Tracy, sitting at the kitchen table painting her nails, gave me this smug smile and said, "I guess this means I finally get the room to myself. I've been waiting forever." It was like a punch in the gut. She didn't even try to hide how excited she was. My parents didn't say a word to stop her or defend me. In fact, they seemed to agree with her. My mom even said, "Well, it'll be nice for her to have some space for all her stuff." Like I was just a placeholder taking up space in their house. I knew then that staying wasn't an option. The idea of spending another day in that house, watching Tracy get treated like royalty while I was told to figure it out, made me sick. So I packed a bag that night. I had no plan, but I knew I wasn't welcome there anymore. I had a friend, Jason, with whom I'd been close for years. His family wasn't rich by any means, but they were good people, kind and supportive in a way that my family never was. When I told him what had happened, he said I could crash on their couch for as long as I needed. I don't know what I would have done without him and his parents. That first night away was rough, though. I lay on their couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. My own parents had basically told me that I wasn't worth their time or money. They didn't care if I had a future. All they cared about was Tracy. The next morning I decided I wasn't going to waste any time feeling sorry for myself. I had to get a job, save up, and make something of myself without them. If they didn't want to be a part of my life, fine. I would prove that I didn't need them. Still, it hurt like hell to be thrown out like that. And Tracy's words, that smug, self-satisfied tone. I finally get the room to myself. Stayed with me like a splinter under my skin. I couldn't shake it. Living with Jason and his family was a lifeline, but I didn't want to overstay my welcome. Within a week, I found a job bussing tables at a diner a few miles away. It wasn't glamorous, and the pay wasn't great, but it was something. I worked double shifts when I could, saving every dollar I didn't need for food or gas. Jason's dad let me borrow their old bike to get around until I could afford a cheap car. At first, I told myself this was temporary, just until I could save enough to figure out my next steps. But as the months went by, it became clear that figuring it out wasn't going to be as easy as I'd hoped. College was completely off the table unless I could secure a full scholarship, and with my grades, that wasn't going to happen. Still, I didn't let it get me down. I threw myself into work, picking up shifts at a second job cleaning offices at night. It was exhausting, but every paycheck reminded me that I was surviving on my own, something my parents never thought I could do. Meanwhile, Tracy was thriving, or so she wanted everyone to think. I'd blocked her on social media, but mutual friends couldn't stop talking about her life. She was attending a private college, fully paid for by my parents, of course. They even helped her rent an off-campus apartment because dorm life wasn't her style. The bitterness I felt wasn't just jealousy, it was the complete unfairness of it all. I didn't hate Tracy, not completely, but the way she flaunted her privilege and acted so entitled made my blood boil. It was as if she enjoyed the fact that I'd been cast aside so she could have everything. By the time winter rolled around, I'd settled into a routine. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. It wasn't much of a life, but it was mine. Jason's family invited me to spend Christmas with them, and it was the first time in years that I felt truly included. I didn't even think about my own family until New Year's Eve. That morning I got a text message from my mom. It was the first I'd heard from her since I'd left. "Come home for New Year's. Tracy has a surprise. It'll be good to see you." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, perhaps out of morbid curiosity, wanted to see what this surprise was. Against my better judgment, I decided to go. I told myself it would be closure, one last chance to see if they even cared. But deep down I knew it wasn't going to end well. I arrived at my parents' house just before dinner. It felt surreal walking up to the door, like I was stepping into a life I no longer belonged to. Nothing had changed, the same perfectly trimmed hedges, the same wreath on the door, but I felt like a stranger. My mother opened the door, and for a moment I thought maybe she'd missed me. But instead of a warm greeting, she just smiled politely and said, "Oh, good, you made it. Tracy will be so excited." Tracy wasn't excited. She was grinning as I walked into the living room, lounging on the couch like she owned the place. "Wow, you actually showed up," she said. "Guess you had nothing better to do." I bit my tongue and sat down, trying not to let her get under my skin. My dad was in the kitchen setting up for dinner, and he barely acknowledged me. The whole thing felt forced, like they were checking off some obligation. After dinner, my mom announced, "Okay, everybody, let's go out to the driveway. Tracy has something to show us." She was practically glowing with excitement, and Tracy had this smug look on her face that told me exactly what was coming. We all stepped outside, and there it was, a brand new car parked in the driveway, wrapped in a huge red bow. "Happy New Year, Tracy," my dad said, beaming as he handed her the keys. "We wanted to make sure you started the year off right." Tracy squealed and ran to the car, gushing about how she totally didn't expect this, and how it was just perfect. She made sure to mention the leather seats and the custom interior, as if we couldn't see it already. I just stood there staring at the car. My parents were grinning like they just won the lottery, and Tracy looked like she'd never been happier. The whole scene was disgusting. Then Tracy turned to me and said, "What do you think, little brother? I guess hard work really does pay off, huh?" That was it. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I felt something snap inside of me. All the bitterness, resentment, and frustration I'd been holding in for months surfaced. I looked at Tracy, then at my parents, and said, "You know what? You're right. Hard work does pay off, but I wouldn't know because I was too busy trying to survive while you handed it to her on a silver platter. The smile on my mom's face faded, and my dad looked like he didn't quite understand what was happening. Tracy, of course, just rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go," she said. "The sob story about how you had it so rough. Get over it. Life isn't fair." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Life isn't fair? You've had everything handed to you since we were kids. New clothes, private schools, college, and now a damn car. Meanwhile, I got kicked out of this house at 17 because you wanted more closet space. But sure, tell me again how life isn't fair." My dad finally spoke up. "We didn't kick you out. We just thought it was time for you to grow up and be independent." "Independent?" I repeated. "You mean abandoned. You told me to figure it out on my own, while you spent every cent to make sure Tracy didn't have to lift a finger. Do you have any idea how messed up that is?" My mom started to say something, but I cut her off. "No, let me finish. I've been working 2 jobs just to afford the basics. I haven't had a day off in months. Meanwhile, you're over here buying Tracy a car like it's no big deal. Do you have any idea how hard it's been for me? Do you even care?" There was a long, awkward silence. My parents exchanged glances, but neither said anything. Tracy, of course, couldn't resist having the last word. "Maybe they'd help you if you weren't such a failure," she said with a shrug. "Just saying." That's when I dropped the bomb. I looked at Tracy, and a cold calm came over me. If they thought I was a failure, I was about to show them how wrong they were. "You think I'm a failure?" I said, locking eyes with her. "Well, let me tell you something." I paused, letting the tension build. "I worked my ass off, not just to survive, but to get ahead. While you were living off Mom and Dad's money, I was saving mine. And 2 months ago, I started my own business." That got their attention. My dad furrowed his brow, and my mom tilted her head like she wasn't sure I was serious. Tracy let out a little laugh, but I continued. "It's small now, I admit it, but it's growing. I'm already making more in a month than I ever did at either of my jobs. And here's the kicker, I just landed a contract with one of the biggest companies in the state. By next year, I'll probably be making more than the 2 of you combined." The silence that followed was deafening. Tracy's smug expression froze on her face, and my dad's jaw actually dropped. "You're lying," Tracy said, but her voice didn't have the same confidence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a business card. I handed it to her, and she stared at it like it was a foreign object. My parents leaned in to take a look too, and my dad's face went pale when he recognized the company logo on it. "You work with them?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," I said, savoring the moment. "They work with me." The unexpected part wasn't just the business, it was what I said next. And here's the funny thing, I almost didn't take the deal. I thought about turning it down just to prove that I could do it without them. But then I thought, why not? They're paying me 6 figures to do something I love. Guess that failure you kicked out is doing okay after all. Tracy's face turned red and she stammered something I couldn't even make out. My mom looked like she didn't know whether to cry or apologize. My dad just stood there, silent, as if the weight of it all had finally hit him. I wasn't done. "Oh, and one more thing," I added. "You might want to keep the car, Tracy. You'll probably need it when Mom and Dad stop paying your way. Because I guarantee they won't be getting a penny from me." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving them all standing there in stunned silence. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the failure they had always made me out to be. I felt free. As I walked down the driveway, I half expected someone to call out to me, but no one did. The silence behind me was almost louder than any argument could have been. I got into my beat-up car, a far cry from Tracy's shiny new one, and drove off without looking back. I thought I'd feel angry or bitter, but when I hit the main road, all I felt was relief. For years I'd carried this weight, this need to prove myself to them, and now it was gone. I didn't need their approval or validation anymore. The success I was building was mine, and they couldn't take it away from me. I went back to Jason's house that night. His parents were watching a cheesy New Year's special, and Jason was playing video games in the living room. I told them what had happened, and Jason's dad just shook his head. "Some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone," he said. "Sounds like you just got a wake-up call." Jason grinned. "Dude, I can't believe you gave them your business card. That's just wild." I laughed, and for the first time in a long time it wasn't forced. Over the next few weeks, things started to fall into place. The contract I mentioned to my parents wasn't just a coincidence, it was the beginning of something big. Word spread, and soon I was fielding calls from other companies interested in working with me. My parents didn't respond right away, which didn't surprise me. But about a month later, I got a text from my mom. "We're proud of you. Let us know if there is anything we can do to help." I stared at the message for a while before replying. "Thanks, but I've got it covered." It wasn't spiteful, just the truth. I didn't need their help anymore, and frankly, I wasn't sure I wanted it. Tracy, predictably, didn't say a word. But a mutual friend told me that she'd complained that our parents had started asking her to be more responsible with money. Apparently, they were rethinking how they handled things, which I took as a small victory. I wasn't looking for an apology or reconciliation. I'd moved on, built something for myself, and that was enough. But deep down, I knew I'd shocked them in a way they wouldn't forget. Sometimes being underestimated is the best motivation. Life moved on, and so did I. The business grew faster than I'd ever imagined. Within 2 years, I had a small team working for me, an office space, and enough income to live comfortably. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I'd been thinking a lot about my family during this time. At first, I tried to pretend they weren't important to me, but deep down I knew that wasn't entirely true. Part of me still wanted closure, some kind of understanding, or even an apology. But I wasn't holding my breath. Surprisingly, my father was the first to make a real effort. About a year after that New Year's confrontation, he called me out of the blue. His voice was awkward, as if he didn't know how to begin. "I just wanted to check in," he said. "See how you're doing." I could tell it wasn't easy for him, and while I wasn't ready to forgive everything, I decided to give him a chance. We talked for a while, mostly about work and life. He didn't bring up the past, but before he hung up, he said something that stayed with me. "You did good, son. Better than I ever imagined." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. Over time, he and I rebuilt a relationship of sorts. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. My mom was slower to come around. She sent the occasional text, usually asking when I was coming to visit, but it felt more like guilt than genuine interest. As for Tracy, she remained distant. From what I heard through mutual friends, her perfect world was beginning to unravel. After college, she struggled to hold down a job, and when my parents finally cut back their financial support, she wasn't prepared. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but another part couldn't forget how she treated me. The big surprise came 2 years later. My parents were selling the house, the same house they'd kicked me out of when I was 17. They invited me to come and say goodbye, as if it had some sentimental value to me. At first I wasn't interested, but Jason convinced me to go. When I got there, the place felt smaller than I remembered. The memories weren't as sharp, and the resentment I'd carried for so long had faded. My parents gave me a tour, pointing out little updates they'd made over the years. It was awkward, but strangely peaceful. As we sat in the empty living room, my father surprised me by handing me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. He hesitated. "It's something we should have done a long time ago. We've been putting money aside, and we want you to have it. Call it an apology if you like." Inside was a check. A big one. Enough to pay for college several times over. I stared at it, not sure how to feel. "You don't have to take it," my mom said quickly. "We just want you to know that we're proud of you. And we're sorry for not being there for you when you needed us." It was the first real apology I'd ever heard from them. For a moment, I considered returning the check. But then I realized it wasn't about the money, it was about them finally acknowledging what they'd done. "I don't need this," I said, putting the check back in the envelope. "But thank you." I handed it back to them and stood up. My dad looked like he was going to argue, but he didn't. Instead, he nodded as if he understood. As I left the house for the last time, I felt lighter than I had in years. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for them to fix what they'd broken. I'd done it myself. In the years that followed, my relationship with my family continued to evolve. We weren't close, but we were civil. My dad called more often, and my mom tried harder to be involved. Tracy remained distant, but I didn't mind. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. The biggest surprise came when I bought my first house. It was a modest place, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Jason helped me move in, and as we were unpacking, I found a small envelope in one of the boxes. Inside was the same check my parents had given me, along with a note. "We know you didn't need this, but maybe your kids will. Love, Mom and Dad." I laughed and shook my head. For all their faults, they were trying, and that was enough for me. Looking back, I realized that the struggle made me who I was. My parents didn't make it easy, but maybe that was the point. I didn't need their approval or their money. I'd built a life I was proud of on my own terms. And that was worth more than anything they could have given me.